The BumbleKast is for entertainment purposes only. The host's comments and opinions, and those of their guests, are wholly their own and do not represent that of any other entity. Content is provided as is, with no guarantees of accuracy or timeliness. Unauthorized redistribution or editing of the BumbleKast in whole or in part is strictly prohibited.
It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Comic the Hedgehog.
As a writer, how do you handle the pressures that come with having an audience? I'm a complete nobody, and yet I still feel myself tense at the thought of all the criticism my work could get if it was published. As someone who probably deals with a lot of pressure, how do you not let the potential backlash stop you from creating?
It can be crushing and demoralizing, to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
But after 20 years of this and having received both extremely high praise to the point where it's not really constructive and incredibly vile responses that, again, not constructive, I've kind of reached a point where I have to accept what I know is solid for me in terms of output. If the client is satisfied and I feel like I've done the best I can with everything considered, the rest is up to the audience. I cannot control how they are going to perceive it or whether they're going to enjoy it. And I've just got to let go. You have to accept that once it's in the wild, it will be read and interpreted in ways that you can't predict. So if most of the audience is entertained and satisfied with it, then that's the best you can hope for, and learn to live with that.
Alrighty. In a similar vein, how do you handle the internal pressure of, oh my god, this project is so huge. It's going to take forever and needs so many parts. What are some good things to avoid being overwhelmed by your own ambitions?
Part of that is learning to scale back.
Understand your limits, yeah.
It's an ongoing process. And part of it is learning to break it down. Like, deadlines for me are a wonderful thing. If I have a solid date, I know, okay, it has to be done by then. This is my rest of the schedule between now and then. This is how much I know I can do on any given day. Let's work within those parameters. This project needs these things to be achieved by certain points, or these benchmarks need to be met. All right. Again, break it down into those compartments and focus on that. I don't need to look at the whole scope of the project necessarily. I can look at what needs to be done in the here and now. What do I need to achieve it? And can I get it done with a little bit of extra time, because things always get in the way. Just learn to break it down into bite-sized chunks and handle it appropriately.
If you start to fear that a scene or a project is not working but are still convinced of its usefulness, how hard should you try to save it? How does a writer know when something is worth fighting for and when to chuck it, especially when you don't have a replacement to fill the gaping hole it will leave?
Again, learning experience, and it's really hard because, man, when that scene, it clicks in your head, you know exactly how it's supposed to go, but it's not working. It probably has to go. And with it, what you may have to do is just shift mental gears, cut it entirely, and say, okay, how do I achieve what I need to achieve without this part here? Case in point, there was a element in Dragoon where I had this character introduced. They had their own sub arc, so that they would play this pivotal role at one point in the story, and then continue to pop out as things continued in the long term. And it was kind of a distraction. It was a lot of time spent on this one guy, and looking at it, it's like, okay, his involvement at this point to do this thing feels a little contrived. Is this really working? So took him out entirely. It's like, all right, let's cut this character. Let's cut everything about him. Gone. How do we achieve what we need to achieve? And that gave the principal cast more agency. It allowed me to move into one of the characters' backstories way faster and made it more organic into how the whole story was progressing and how things fit together. It was really a lot better. So sure, I do miss this particular character and how he would have explored the universe and given us insight into various objects and themes and whatnot. But for the story I'm telling, he wasn't necessary. So he's gone now. And maybe the key ideas to that can come back in something else later on, different project, a different scenario. But for now, he isn't needed. And that's okay, because he's not real. This is all fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a particular scene that, oh my God, dude, love the interaction, love the setting, the character, the the threat of it all, and it's not going to fit anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can see a place where I could wedge it in, and it's like, and what does that do? It just complicates things and muddies it. If you cut it, is it much more streamlined? Do the characters that matter get to interact more? Can you achieve more in that time? Yes. So should you cut it?
Yeah. Rude. I wanted that part.
And if you, so let's say you cut that scene and you cannot figure out how to make the ends meet. Something about that scene is integral to achieve what you need to. Look at what that plot beat is and see how else you can approach it. Can any other character reveal something or reach that point that you need without the whole scene built around it? Like, tear your thought into pieces, get into the DNA, figure out how it's built and why it's structured that way, and let go of the whimsy, let go of the story and the fun, get into the meat of it, like dissect this thing. It kind of takes some of the fun out of it sometimes, but you need to be able to detach yourself to have the stronger story sometimes.
I have a gazillion stories in my head and I want to write them all at once. The result is that I have a gazillion partially written stories and no finished ones. Do you have any advice for actually committing to something and not letting all those other pesky ideas distract you?
Something that I've tried to do is, if you have that really burning idea, go ahead and write it down, but then put it aside. Don't throw all your eggs in that basket. And 2, look at your gazillion ideas, because I know that feel, bro. And look at the ones that really catch your interest. Like, as you're scrolling through the various file folders and document names, and like, what was this one again? Or do I really remember that? Or I was having trouble with that one. Set them aside. You are not inspired. When you come across one, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this one. Or that was coming along so well until I hit that one point. Put them like in a different folder and narrow it down to like 3 or 4. And those are the ones you're working on now. The other ones, you don't get to touch those until the others are done. You can't even think about it. They're over there now. You're focusing on these. And, try to pick up one that you feel inspired for. Or if nothing's clicking, roll a die, spin a top, whatever. Leave it up to fate. And it says, okay, you're going to work on project number 2. And you're like, okay, I'm going to work on project number 2. Or the die says you're doing that. And you're like, no, I actually feel more like project 3. Then work on project 3. Whatever it is that you need to do to trick yourself into focusing on the one thing, do it. And, get her done.
It's always about tricking yourself. That's what it
more
really
or less.
boils
You are
down
your
to.
own worst enemy.
Yeah,
in the creative parts.
When writing a child character, especially one in middle or high school, how do you make them sound their age? How do you, as an adult, accurately portray a younger protagonist without feeling like the guy from "How do you do, fellow kids" meme?
I'm not 100% sure how to do that, to be honest. The way I approach it is I try to remember how I thought about things at that age, or memories of my peers at that age. Or I used to work with young kids in aftercare and extended education. So I have a lot of experience with younger kids and how they work. So that's a little easier to pull back on. Beyond that, I mean, what you could do is go to a public space, public park, mall, whatever, and people watch. I know that sounds a little creepy, but don't be creepy about it. Just, look at folks passing by, observe their day-to-day life. Just look at how the kids are playing when their parents have told them to please public space. Look at the body language and listen to what the teenagers are saying as they hang out and do whatever they do. Was out the other day doing some shopping, and the staff were high school, early college age. And man, did I feel old listening to the slang they were throwing at each other. It's like, oh, people legit talk like that. That's not just like Twitch stream stuff. People are actually using that vernacular. Okay, learning experience.
Yes. Big oof is actually a thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it comes down to if the characters' motivations feel legitimate, like they are driven by their own desires, that will do a lot of the work for you. And just keep in mind that, younger characters don't have necessarily the motor skills or the social skills or the vocabulary to fully express what they want. And there is a degree of frustration that comes with that. So just try to put yourself in their perspective and understand from their limitations.
Next question. How do you know when a story is finished? To be clear, I don't mean your editor gave their blessing and it got approved by the higher-ups. I mean, how do you know? How do you know when a story cannot or should not be revised any further and is ready to be seen by other human beings?
Never, because it will always be, oh, I could do this, or I will do that, and second guess this, and blah, blah, blah. But for me, if I'm going through and doing the proofread and all I'm doing is like minor word changes, like the faintest edit here and there, it's really nitpicky stuff, it's done. I'm not fine tuning, I'm being pedantic. So it's done, move on, or you're going to overthink it and spoil it.
Alrighty. How much passivity would you say is permissible in a story? I know it's generally best to have protagonists make active choices that drive the story, but there are also examples where the protagonist is more reactive, but the story still works.
Depends on your story. Depends on your plot and your character. Like if your character has the initiative, if they are out to change something in that world, then they should be more active and proactive. But if they are in a situation where they are at odds with the world around them or are very reluctant to engage with the narrative, they can be more reactive, or things can happen to them and they just kind of come out the other side if you want to go kind of farcical.
When writing a first contact story with alien characters, how much world building for their planet do you think is necessary? I know it's probably best to flesh out their world so they'll be more developed, but the story doesn't spend nearly as much time there as it does on Earth, so I sometimes wonder if that's a wasted effort.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying you need to figure out the entire, biodiversity and historical context for this alien race that shows up and goes, "Bah," and then goes home. But you do need to at least understand what they are and where they're from. Like, get the very bare basics down. What informs their shape? What informs their language, their culture? Are they humanoid? Are they not? How alien are these aliens going to be in your story? And if you have enough context so that you feel like they can confidently express themselves in a way that feels genuine, then I think that's enough.
When do you know enough about a character to start writing them? I often feel like I have to know everything from their birthdays to their pajamas of choice to what they'd eat on a plane, and this sometimes prevents me from actually getting to the story. When learning who your characters are, how much is too much?
Probably the pajamas is a bit much, but it's still good to know. It's still fun. There's 101 different character worksheets out there. What is their favorite food? How do they express happiness, etc., etc. And you can do a few of those to kind of get a feel for them. But the character when you enter a scene and they need to interact with something or react a certain way, and it just comes naturally to you. You don't have to second guess. It's like this happens, and your character says X, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's what they do." And it may not be universal. You may come across a scene later on where you're not exactly sure how they would go, but you have at least a basis of understanding. It's like, would they react aggressively or would they be more understanding? Well, either seems applicable, so let's investigate. What is the situation? Where are they coming from in the moment? What is their relationship with everything around them? And from there, you can make your informed decision of, okay, because of X, Y, and Z, they would actually be more measured in this case because they learned from some experience. Or no, because of these factors that you know about, they're not going to think this through and they're going to be aggressive in how they react. And so both are genuine and both are true, but you understand the character enough that you can navigate that situation and come to the conclusion of what would likely happen.
And finally, our last question from Comic the Hedgehog. Now that we're at the end, thank you so much for your time. I'm an aspiring author who's a bit stuck at the moment and working hard to get my work out into the world, so I really appreciate your advice. For my last question, what is the best way to develop a setting and make the location of the story feel like another character? Is it the culture of a place that matters most, or a physical description of what's there?
If you're going with straight prose, your word choice will go a long way to defining the setting. If you do a lot of fanciful alliteration, if you use lots of flowery language, if you go on about the area and its setting with a lot of positive descriptors, it's going to feel more welcoming. You're going to have a brighter image in your mind's eye. If you use more terse or succinct language, if you use colder sounding words, if you describe things harshly, then that's going to bring a lot of character in its own right. You're going to make it feel more unwelcoming or dangerous. So just saying that it was a dark and stormy cliffside, that doesn't go very far. But if you describe how swollen the clouds are, that the biting wind got under your skin, that each step was treacherous because of how black and sharp the natural stonework was, that creates more of a vision than just saying that, oh, it's not nice here. So be very conscious of your word choice in the length of your sentences, in the cadence of your writing, and that will inform the character of the setting that you're setting up.
All right, I think that's a good place to end. I mean, we have no more questions, so wouldn't it be weird if we somehow kept going without any questions? Anyway, let's get out of here.
Thanks so much to Comic Book Hedgehog for sponsoring this BumbleKast Mini. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
Bye-bye for now.